Okay, um, so let's start our panel discussion now. Our title is Industry Expectation and Readiness of IT Professionals in AI Era. So we have a great set of panelists here. Let me introduce one by one. So our first panelist is Goutam Kurumella. Let me invite Gautam to the stage. So Gautam is the head of startup solution architecture at AWS India. He has extensive experience partnering with the clients and to advance their competitive positions in developing and executing business strategies and leveraging cloud. And he specializes in deep learning and generative AI in cloud computing. So let's invite him. Let's give him a great round of applause. And our next panelist is Aparajithan Vaidyanathan. Please come to the stage, sir. So Aparajithan is a principal enterprise solution architect at AWS India. He's also a seasoned technology leader with over 25 years of experience. Thank you, sir. Thanks for being here. And our third panelist is Varsha Verma. Let me invite her to the stage. Varsha is a senior cloud engineer at Accenture with a rich background of over 6 years in the industry. She has been taking a lot of sessions, and thank you, Varsha, for being here. So what we are going to do is we are going to discuss about generative AI, and yes, you know, with ChatGPT, there has been a huge change in AI, and everybody wants to leverage AI tools, and everybody wants AI in their applications, or every company wants AI in their title. Somewhere AI should be there. So we're gonna ask few questions regarding AI. What you can do is like any of you can answer, or I'm not gonna call one by one, but if you can, I can do that also. So my first question is, what has been the most significant shift in the IT landscape over the last 3 years, considering Gen AI advancements, economic challenges, and evolving industry demands? So who wants to go first?
Let me start. So the first one, which I think will be a significant shift, will be the generation of infrastructure as a code. Like initially, we used to write the codes on our own. Now we can generate. So instead of writing the code from scratch, we can mainly focus on the strategies and the logic that we want to build on top of it. And accordingly, we can tailor it and customize it. You want to add more?
Yeah, sure. So the question is, what will be the shift, right? I think we have to look at it in multiple dimensions, right? From an economy point of view, the investments in AI, especially generative AI, is going to increase. So while organizations are looking at reducing headcount, the investments in generative AI is increasing. That is one shift we are seeing. The second is development productivity is something, as you're saying. So looking at the larger picture about using code companion tools like Amazon Q developer, which will increase the productivity and efficiency. So it's not meant to be a replacement or a substitute for a developer. Rather, it makes you a developer on steroids. It gives you 30 to 40% productivity increase, right? And it can be used for multiple things: for researching, for planning, for design, for architecture, for coding, for test case creation, for troubleshooting, for migration, modernization. So that is another shift that we are seeing it. Anything you would like to add?
Yeah, again, I think beyond tech, beyond IT, right? Again, the impacts are profound. Be it in healthcare, for example, on drug discovery, the kind of work that is happening, especially in terms of identifying new molecules and all. There are interesting set of models that have been built in the last couple of years. Again, using the techniques and the learnings from the deep learning and generative AI field, but also on the fun part or the fun side of things, right? On the creative or the creator side of stuff. So there is a whole shift in the way people are actually creating or using generative AI, be it in terms of doing animation work, being in terms of creating videos. We have seen like tremendous shift in that space, right? In fact, there are a lot of audio generation models. You must have heard about Suno, Udio, right? So there are those kind of companies and startups who are doing some interesting work. You must have seen the kind of work or the derivatives of diffusion models that have happened over a period of time. Start with the paper on LDM that led us to stable diffusion, then flux and Pixart. There are a bunch of those models. So I think this is again shifting. Again, if you look at on the speech modality, again, there is a lot of work that has happened. If you look at the video production, for example, there is a lot of image to video and video to video models or text to video models, and this pretty much changing a completely different field and space altogether, right? So it's not just the IT or the tech that is being, influenced or impacted, but a lot of other creative areas where people are actually using generative AI to do some interesting work.
Thank you all. Thanks for that. So my next question is, so AI is a term that everybody knows, right? But recently everybody keeps hearing Gen AI. So can you explain what Gen AI is in simpler terms so that everybody can understand?
Sure. Okay, so we are all familiar with AI, right? The traditional AI, which is linear regression, classification, right? So it does one thing. So if you give it an image, it will tell you it's a cat or not a cat, right? It can give you models which can use to measure the, for example, what is the value of your property, right? So this is a traditional machine learning image recognition problems, right? Generative AI, as noted in the generative, there is a creative component to it. So it means that it can generate information, and the key part is in machine learning, traditional machine learning, you should have the right data set, because if your data is not properly feature engineered, then your models will not succeed. That's a key differentiator with generative AI. With generative AI, you can work with ambiguity, which means that even if you have text or information which is ambiguous, which is not clear, which is not engineered properly, you can still use that to create context and get responses that are relevant to your question. So that is a very key component to that, right? So generative could mean many things. It could be text generation, it could be image generation like Goutam pointed out. It could be code, it could be video, it could be audio. So we're talking multi-modal here. So that is the key difference between generative and machine learning. Another key differentiator is with traditional machine learning, the amount of compute power you need to train and deploy the model is significantly less compared to the amount of resources that you require for a generative AI model. Recently, we had a Amazon CTO, right, Verma, who visited India, and I had an opportunity to sit with him. He made a very interesting observation. He says that every prompt that we send, it consumes 7 liters of water. So we have to also be mindful of the cost aspect, the sustainability and the environmental impact of that, right? And another point he made, which I really resonated with me, is if you can solve a problem with traditional machine learning, that should be the right way instead of going for using generative AI for solving all the problems. So it's in a nutshell, this is a difference between generative AI and machine learning. I hope that is clear, right? Anything you would like to add?
A follow-up question on that. So you did mention like image processing and a few other examples, but do you have any other examples like from a professional perspective or from a personal perspective to give to differentiate AI and Gen AI?
Yeah, for example, let's say earlier, whenever we think of machine learning, right, it used to be a separate segment. There is a well-defined problem that requires a machine learning solution. But with generative AI, it has become more inclusive. For example, let's say we were actually talking about it outside with another developer. Let's say if I'm trying to troubleshoot a Lambda function, right, or if my RDS query is not fast enough, the mindset has changed now, right? Earlier we used to, go and do Google and Stack Overflow, right? But now it is changed, right? We just paste that code into a large language model, the stack, right, whatever, and then it gives you these are the 4 things you can try, right? Do this and do that, right? So it means that at a personal level as a professional level, the way we approach, how we approach the solution to the common problems which we used to have has changed. And I think this is where how you leverage generative AI is also becomes important, which is not the same. Like, for example, you would not do this with the classical machine learning. How many times do you really need to know whether it's a cat or not a cat? right? I mean, so there was used to be a very specific problem space for a machine learning solution, but generative AI has made the adoption more inclusive, more democratic, which means that it can be applied to multiple scenarios.
Thank you. So my next question would be, so what would be the emerging trends in Gen AI that do you believe in that will be a game changer in next 3 to 4 years?
Okay. Already we are utilizing ChatGPT for everything. In WhatsApp, we are utilizing it, right? We are generating the images which is not there, even there in the internet, and we are using it. So that could be the first one that is already being there, and we could go to the much higher extent, and even we cannot imagine like what it could be. So that and multi-level, I could think multi-level language progressing, in which we could train the. Um, I'm not sure if I'm going in right direction, but this is what I'm thinking. Yeah, so we could not imagine, like it is beyond our imagination, but yeah, multi-level training, multi-language training we can do, that could be helpful. I could be wrong, I could be right, but yeah, that's my thought.
I'll just take a stab at it. In my view, again, it's more in terms of what is the practical adoption, right? Again, we will see more in terms of folks building multimodal applications, and more so things such as voice, especially in the emerging countries. You know, in countries like Southeast Asian countries, or in India, or even in countries or countries in the continent of Africa, you will see a lot of people will be using or relying on voice instead of written text and all of that. I think that will be from the consumption side of things. But from a tech standpoint, again, if you look at the way things are today, I think they will undergo. You will definitely see a lot of new innovations coming in that space. For example, even within AWS, we are working at different ways to minimize the latency and the inference costs, right? So can we build purpose chipsets for inferencing? Can we build purpose chipsets for training, right? So again, currently we are in third generation of those things, but we'll keep pushing the boundary, and we'll probably make further advancements on some of those areas. Again, purely from the science side of thing, again, there will be more and more focus on vertical LLMs and vertical applications, LLMs that are more deep on medical applications, or people focusing more on, let's say, law, for example, right? For example, reading the judgments and providing the right kind of results and all of that. You'll see more and more folks building vertical applications. I think that's another space which is fast emerging. But yeah, between the modalities, between the domains, and between the tech, I think these are some of the things probably I foresee which is happening in the next couple of quarters, or maybe in a few years' time.
Thanks, sir. So, okay, next is like everybody is scared that they're gonna lose their job when Gen AI is coming. Okay, so my question is, what kind of skill set that you suggest that a person or a professional should be having, since it's a Gen AI era? Stay relevant.
I think that's a very important term, right? It's about staying relevant. See, if you look at how we industrialized, right? If you go back to 1800s, many of the jobs have gone, right? I would not say gone, they have transformed or morphed into something, right? Which means that some of the undifferentiated heavy lifting that we used to do, right? That have gone, right? And as humans, we've evolved into working on tasks at a slightly higher level, at a value level, right? That's how we are, right? So I would not say we need to be afraid of AI, right? It's not like AI is going to. I was having a conversation after the session with a bunch of college students, and they had the same concern. I am a data scientist, you're telling me no code AI, then what am I studying for? See, we live in the era of Teslas, right? Teslas have completely self-driven cars. But how many of us use that, right? I mean, we still drive our own cars. So it's not like it's just going to completely change, but it's really important to learn some of the skill. I think the future is going to be successful for people who augment AI in their workflow to increase their productivity compared to those who don't. So it's important to learn and pick up skills like how do you really work with the large language models? How do you fine tune it for your business use case? What are all the large language models that are available? What is the right model for the right capability? Right? Where can I leverage these models? What are the strengths and weaknesses? How do I write efficient prompts to interact with it? This skill set will really help because the future is going to be AI, but it is not meant to be a replacement for what we do today.
One.
Yeah, as he said, like being relevant, whatever job you are doing right now, try to integrate with AI. If you are cloud engineer, it's okay, but you can integrate other AI things that we have inside AWS as well, right? So that would make you relevant and make you future ready. So you don't have to scare, okay, I'll lose job. No. Being in IT, it's like all-time learning process. You have to be on your toes every time something new is coming. A lot of services are coming nowadays, it's going. So if you are only stuck with those 10 things that you know, so obviously you won't be relevant in the future. Like what is the gap we could say, like I have with my parents. They are from that generation, I am from this generation. So some of the things, they are not able to keep it up, right? So you don't have to be I could say stuck with the things that you already know. Try to inculcate, try to learn more, and you don't have to worry about like what comes. It could be a great fit for you that you don't know. So try to discover as much as you can in terms of AI. There's a lot of learning opportunity.
One follow-up on that. So can you provide any examples where Gen I acted as a partner, a reliable partner for us?
Yeah, I think pretty much most of the things, whatever she said, right? I think it's all real today, right? If you look at your day in the life, the coding assistant, while you're coding, there is a Gen AI which is actually helping you just to sort of use it to your advantage, right? End of the day, you can improve your productivity maybe by 30% or 40%, right? Depending on what you're trying to build. At the same time, it's also enabling you to do something completely difficult. For example, if you want to create a video, for example, right, or a greeting card. Let's think of a simple, greeting card that you want to create for your friend or family member. You can actually just do it with a prompt today, right? You don't have to sort of go draw things, or you don't have to go search and make those changes and all of that. So you can just go write a prompt and generate the image or card that you can actually just forward to your friends and family members. The same stuff is happening in other areas, right? There are creators who are like they don't have production teams. The barrier to entry is actually getting lower and lower, right? So you don't need to have a 20-member team, 50-member team to do a video shoot. You don't need expensive equipment and all of that. It can be done by one or two people with some basic editing skills and some solid prompting skills and access to the right set of models and stuff like that. So I think those are the things that you need to be a bit more watchful and see how you can use it to your advantage rather than distancing yourself from some of these things.
So since you mentioned, oh sorry.
Okay, so one real life example I would like to share up with you. So last month I was in Ahmedabad for a community event, again AWS, and Jen was part of our event. Jen Looper, she is the head of advocacy. So their AWS Pune community, I think they have gifted her a sari that was AI generated. So she has wore her in all of the events that she was a part of. It was the cloud and all was generated in AI, and the manufacturer of sari, he was able to build that up. So that could be again a new integration that I have seen. So it's a very pretty sari, and from going from that traditional sari making, the person who has made the sari, he has integrated AI now, so he can generate new types of designs. So that is a real life example I was witnessed.
Great example. Personally, I use Gen AI every day, right? Let's say my elder son is in 11th and my younger one is in 6th, and they do their Olympiad exam. So I use Claude and Gemini a lot to help them teach some of the concepts, right? sometimes when he gets frustrated, I said, okay, teach this as a sixth standard, and it actually does a very good job. At work, I use it, whenever I'm working with customers, whenever they have queries. Sometimes I use the Bedrock to sort of get the responses quickly so that I can, address my customer concerns. I use Q Developer a lot to troubleshoot, to generate code if I have to do some POCs. One of the perks of working at Amazon is that we have access to amazing internal AI tools. So we do that for multiple things, to create documents, to do research, to create code. So for me, generative AI personally and professionally, it's something that is now very integral to the way I function.
Yeah, by the way, I just stopped using Google search. I mean, I don't know when was the last time I used it. So I use Perplexity, and pretty much I get everything, whatever I need.
So the options are endless. It's just that how we use it. Okay. So since he mentioned prompt engineering, so the industry and companies are actually projecting prompt engineering from a niche skill to something that you need right now. So do you think this is a recent trend, or do you see this is a temporary, or is it going to stay for a long time?
Yeah, I think I would sort of go back to what Goutam presentation, right? He talked about the 2023 being the year of POCs, and 2024 being the year of production, and 2025 the year of scale, right? I think that's a very key part here. Prompt engineering in 2023 was a big thing, right? Like if you're a prompt whisperer or LLM whisperer, then that's going to be the next thing. I think based on my observation, I don't think it is a very sustainable career. But I think we talked about it earlier in another context, that ability to interact with large language models, ability to identify which models for the right purpose, fine tune, create small language models or large language models, domain specific models, that is going to be a very valuable skill set to have. So that way, I think the prompt engineering sort of becomes an essential component of how we work with large language models. But whether prompt engineering itself will become a sustainable career path, I'm not very sure about that. Do you have a different?
All right, thank you for that. So we'll move on to the next question. So what are the biggest challenges for an organization when you adapt Gen AI?
Okay, so Gen AI, everyone is hearing this a lot, and people actually don't know like how they should start, right? So first, basic understanding, fundamentally they have to be sure like what should be the use cases that they'll be solving on top of it. I think with that they could get a hold of it, and then they could jump into like another models we have to train there, because it will take a lot, and companies are investing a lot in making the people who are working under them to have the trainings. Like in Accenture, we do have trainings for Gen AI and other stuffs going on, so that it's just not a vague term for us, generative AI, ChatGPT. It's much more than that. It's just what we are utilizing. It one or two things we know, and we try to generalize it with those terms. It's not like that. Anything you want to?
Yeah, maybe just a quick thing. There are a few barriers, right? Because we work with customers a lot. Some of the barriers that I would like to share with you is, one is identifying the POCs, right? Identifying the right POCs. Second is identifying the team and making sure that the team is aware and / competent, right? Giving them the training, giving them the necessary skills so that they work with it. The third is management commitment. Whether something is just going to remain as a POC, or it's going to be, is upper management or senior management committed to move that workload to production. Fourth is whether there is a viable funding, commercials are available, right? So it's not just like you run something in your laptop and you show it and then everything is tick boxed. But then how are you going to convert that into operational aspect? How are you going to move that workload into production? And whether there is adequate funding that is covering that, right? So these are some of the aspects that organizations should think about. And sometimes we've seen that this becomes inhibitor for them to, because sometimes they get under pressure to do something with Gen AI, but then they are not able to really go through this phase of identifying POCs, getting their workforce trained, identifying the funding process, then getting the top management support, commitment. So these are the dots that need to be lined to get to that part.
Anything else to add?
Maybe just to add to that, from the lens of a builder, or if you're a startup who are building products, and especially if you build a product that is enabled using GenAI and all of that, two things that you will eventually come across as a challenge, especially if you're planning to sell it to enterprise, if other enterprises are your customers, right? So one is the acceptability, right? What is the why they will actually use with the confidence. That's number one thing that you'll face. The second thing is there'll be a lot of questions on security and governance, right? For sure. And there are ways and means to address those things and put the remediations and controls. But largely, I think in terms of why the projects get delayed, especially if you have built a product, in terms of if you're not ready to onboard the customers, I think these are some of the things that you should have answers ahead of time. Right, so when you're actually approaching a bank, or if you're talking to a healthcare or a large medical provider, so you need to have the right answers for all of these things before you go and actually share or talk about your solutions and stuff like that.
Yeah, my next question actually was about security concerns. How do we tackle it? So that's something that we actually need to address, right? With AI, we have a lot of options. Anything is possible. So that is something that we need to address. Do you have any suggestions or any ideas on that?
Yeah, again, security again is a much larger surface area, but few things, right? How we protect the application itself. In the morning, I also talked about how you can build applications which are safe from prompt attacks, for example. People are actually using some prompts that will try to extract information which the model or the application is not supposed to. How you actually safely build those applications. The second one is actually on the controls and the degree of, I would say, what is acceptable and what is not in terms of toxicity, or even the kind of images. Let's say if you're built a image generation application, whether the generated image conforms to certain standards, how you moderate those things before you actually present it back to the user. So there are those internal controls or security that you need to put in mind, think through on some of these things as well. Yeah, then there is infra security, platform security, and then there is all these other areas around ethics that you need to be equally worried about.
Just quickly add to what Goutam said, right? See, security should be taken as a job zero, because whether you are a small, medium, or large enterprise or a startup, right? The quickest way that you can lose trust with your internal or external customer if there is a breach. So, and it can become a big inhibitor when it comes to adoption of GenAI. So you need to really think about security. And I think this is one of the areas where, from an AWS perspective, because we were in an AWS event, you must be familiar with the number of AWS security services that are available, right? Even for GenAI, we have SageMaker Clarify for bias detection. We have guardrails for prevention of toxicity bias, right? We have so many security-specific, security-focused services that you should be using, and it should be a key component of your GenAI application. Of course, you should be authenticating your users, you should be logging, you should be tracking, tracing. So whether you're integrating GenAI functionality with your existing application, or you're building a pure GenAI application, or you're building a new application that has GenAI component to it, you need to really think about security completely. Make sure that at every layer, at every stack, security is addressed.
Anything you want? Okay, thank you. So my next question is, so now, recent days, exit cloud is trending. Exit cloud, in the sense, users are moving away from cloud due to cost and other reasons. So, and there was a time like everybody was onboarding to cloud. So do you think AI will also fade out in some time? Or is it just a hype that we are having now?
Actually, I'll ask you a counter question, right? It's very interesting. 2 years back, do you know how much of cloud adoption that we have seen in enterprises in terms of percentage? Just throw a random number, right?
I think the projection was like in next 30 years it will be like trillion.
No, not the amount. I'm saying like when you say cloud has become ubiquitous, everybody is getting into cloud. I want to just quantify that everybody, right? I'll tell you, 4%. Only 4% of enterprise workloads are in cloud, right? So even with cloud being so ubiquitous and everybody knows it, the amount of actual workloads migrated is very significantly much less. The second part of your question is, I do not think Gen AI is going to go away. Some of the, some of the, what do you say, the fancy, the shininess may go away, but we have seen how companies leverage Gen AI and kind of productivity they get out of it, whether it's Q developer, Q business, or Bedrock, and or generating new images, right? And the fact that more and more top companies are investing significantly into it. Every day new models are being trained. Every day intelligence is increasing. New chips are made, right? New silicon is made for customize that. I think generative AI is going to be here to stay. That is my view.
Yeah. My take on exit cloud, the way you have described, is probably not exit cloud, but how things can be more distributed, right? So instead of everything staying in a couple of regions, how can some of the things be enabled at the edge, right? So, and it's happening as we speak, right? You're seeing models that are sitting on the phone, in your watches, in the gadgets that you have. For example, some of those personal assistants that you might have at home, right? I think you will see the trend of having those models and capabilities pushed to the edge to sort of make things better, faster, and probably have better reaction times and stuff like that, and probably keep more data closer to where it has to be, right, than having everything in one place. So I think you will see more and more of those use cases evolving as we speak. But I'm not really convinced on the argument of exit cloud. There is enough and more interest in terms of building on cloud and moving certain workloads. The percentage, again, the needle will move slowly, right? I mean, it won't happen overnight, and every percentage is a big thing. I mean, the amount of legacy and stuff that is already out there, even a couple of percentage changes is actually pretty big. So that will happen over the course of next few years.
So yeah, like you think of it, like now you're not searching anything on Google. ChatGPT has become your best friend, right? So you are becoming habituated to the Gen AI things a lot in your daily life, which you don't even realize. So obviously it's not gonna go, but it will get better with time. Like a lot of new modifications will come and go, but obviously it will not go. And as Apar said that cloud adaptability into enterprises, it's still very low. People are still using on-premises. So one black hole I could see is the people who are using on-premise and they want to adopt Gen AI. So it will be a difficult integration, I think, that they are working on currently. So maybe with that, they could find a solution, or they want them to move into cloud, so a new thing can open, a new horizon can open on that.
Thank you all. So this is my last question of the panel discussion from my side, okay? So I think we already discussed this, but then again, one piece of advice for everybody to stay relevant in the Gen AI era from each one of you.
Learning never stop. Whatever you are doing, Gen AI has a vast horizon. There is at least one or two things for everyone. It's just you need to explore what you find interest in, what you want to integrate. If you are, as I said, I'm a cloud engineer, so I use a lot of AWS thing in my daily life. ChatGPT is my best friend. I don't write code on my own. Like, we need to focus more on things than writing code. Strategies, I said. Logic, I said. We have to focus on that. One more thing I would like to give example is initially, like, we are using normal on-demand EC2 instances. Then serverless came. A little more thing added is just you need to just provide the function. Whatever goes behind, AWS takes care for you. So you just have to build the strategy. You just don't need to focus on building things now. So with that, prompt engineering came. as Gen AI came. So it's not everyone's cup of tea to tailoredly created a prompt. Every prompt will generate new answers. So it's just who knows this language models a lot, he'll be able to tailor the prompt more oftenly, and like how he can tailor, he want to, like what answer he want to get from that, he can make it. So obviously he gonna have like more knowledge on that, he's adapting that thing, so that is opening more opportunity as well in terms of prompt engineering. I'm not sure whether it will stay or not, as Apar said, it's a subjective topic right now. But yeah, learning shouldn't stop. Whatever you have, just leverage it, and new opportunities will definitely gonna open.
So I think one advice I would suggest, which is something I follow, is that it's one thing to talk about it, it's one thing to hear about it, but it's one other thing to do it, right? I mean, if you go to any portal, right? Like for example, AWS has Skill Builder, right? Skill Builder is our learning platform. You get ton of free courses, and you can have labs, right? So which means you don't need to have AWS account, you don't need to have credits with Claude to understand, right? So you can learn something, even if it is a 1 hour course. If you can spare 1 hour, 2 hours, I think we owe it ourselves, we owe it to our career, right? And to invest in that, and become, learn and be more curious, right? So that is just one thing that I would like to add to what she said.
Yeah, I think great suggestions by both of them. If I have to just add to that, depends on where you want to get to. Let's say if you're a researcher and if you want to improve, then you have to continue reading papers, latest and greatest, whatever is coming up, right? So that's one thing. If you are more into development, or if you're more into building applications, or if you're more on a consumer side, see what's happening in the world. Look at different forums, right? Use Reddit forums, use Discord. Attend conferences. Join some hackathons. Go and participate, network, and get an understanding in terms of what others are doing. What are the new techniques or new ways that people are using some of these solutions, and get some inspiration from those things. That's a different kind of a learning. It's not like you're sitting at home, reading everything by yourself, but actually going out and really meeting and networking people with real people, right? So at least make the most of it, till the time that the real people gets replaced by robots. But yeah, I think that's something that you have to constantly do it to stay relevant.
Thank you all. So that's all I had, but I would like to know if you guys have any questions, then please ask away. Please raise your hands. You have great set of panelists. Just utilize them.
Yeah, we are a software development company. So now when we get new inquiries for bids, the cost aspect as well as the estimate, right? You have to reduce the estimates to win the bid. So there is a constant competition there. So go-to-market speed has to increase with Gen AI, estimations have to come down, cost has to come down. See, with all of these Gen AI tools, the OpEx is still there, right? So what are your ideas on all of these aspects? Reduce cost as well as reduce time with Gen AI is in 2025, is it going to reduce the cost? Because the customers are requesting for go-to-market speed as well as reduction in OpEx.
I'll just take a short stab at it. See, I'll split it into two ways, right? As AWS, we have a history of keep reducing the cost. I'm sure as a community, you must be familiar with it, right? So it's in our DNA to to keep reducing the cost. That's the first part of it. The second part, if you see the industry, more and more newer models are coming, but the input tokens and output, the token cost is actually considerably less. So if I look at Claude 2, Sonnet, Claude 2 Haiku, and then Claude 3.5 or 3, actually the models are getting more and more intelligent, but then the per token cost or per token cost per 1,000 is actually getting lesser. Probably because in parallel there's also innovations going on in the GPU or Inferentia Trainium, right, where we are making more efficient hardware that can train these large language models in a much more cost efficient way, and then deploy them. So combination of investments, combination of research is actually really pushing this into a area where cost is getting lesser, and I think it's going to become like that. the cost is going to be more and more lesser. But many times where we see our customers struggle is that they don't really understand, where the costs can come up. They think that when they're building a GenAI application, it's just only the model cost. Actually, it's not. Most of your cost will come from your compute, your storage, your other services, right? And those are not going away. You still have to clean up your data, you need to store your data, you need to have a landing zone, right? I think we tend to forget that. But in fact, I have worked on 8 production projects this year. 4 of them we migrated to production. The GenAI cost is actually a much significantly lesser component compared to the rest of it. So even in your quotation or RFP, GenAI, understanding this and positioning the GenAI component with respect to the tokens is going to play a significant role.
Thank you for that. Any other questions?
I'll just give a tip. If you're a system integrator or if you're into consulting business who manages a lot of RFPs, like if you're working on RFP response and all, your response time also has to improve, right? So you have to improve your team productivity and all of that. So one tool probably can look at is some of our team members published it on AWS samples. Just go and look for RFP Accelerator. It's again powered by cloud and all of that, but essentially what it helps you do is you just throw the RFP document, and it actually provide all the supporting documents if there are any manuals or additional things that you need to use from a RAG standpoint. Just push those into knowledge base, and it will actually fill the RFP for you. At least the first draft is ready for you, and then you can actually go and do an eyeball check and go make changes, and then you can submit it as long as it's done, right? So there are different ways to sort of improve your productivity on these elements.
Thanks, Goutam, for adding that. Any other questions? All right, thanks. Can you introduce yourself first, please?
I'm Sharika, and I'm a co-organizer. I'm also from Fingent, the same company that Suju spoke about. So my question is, every time there's a new tool that comes up, the question we ask our developers is, can you give it to a fresher so that they can start using it? And it's not possible, because obviously you need to have the eyeball check. You need to have a senior person looking at it. You need to have significant experience to evaluate if what the GenAI tool has given you is significant. So I'm sure there are a lot of freshers here. What should they train on, or what should they start prepping themselves up on in order for them to get ready for both GenAI as well as this eyeball check that you need to do on the result?
That's a great question. Who wants to answer that?
So first of all, if you are trying to handing over to your juniors, so make sure they are well trained. As I mentioned, that companies do have the internal training sessions for the same. So make sure they're well aware of it, not just a vague term. Secondly, proper documentation. Every organization has proper documentation. AWS has, I have heard a lot about it, that they have like tremendous documentation for everything. So documentation is the key. Eyeball check, obviously it will be needing, and shadowing, reverse shadowing will work. Not for the longer run, but yeah, these 3 key things, I think that will be helpful. You wanna add?
Yeah, just a quick one. I think if there are freshers and out there, learn to embrace coding companions. Learn to embrace it. It can be sometimes what happens is when you join a new team, right, you will not be able to get the bandwidth of your senior people a lot. But you can treat GenAI as somebody who's looking over your shoulder, giving you that initial watching before you actually go, and you can sound more intelligent with your seniors. So whether it's doing code review or doing test creation, whether you're doing coding, maybe you can go back and ask your team, do we have any coding companions? Can I get it? What is the way to access it? Because going back to your point, if anybody needs it, it's the freshers, right? They should be the first ones to get it, because it will help them to write code which is scalable, which is secure, which is reliable, which has fewer bugs, which has fewer security issues. And I think embracing that is going to be important.
Yeah, I'll give a slightly different analogy, right? I think when we all first got our smartphones, what did we do? Or what would you do actually? You just go install a few apps, play with it, right? You will use few. I don't think you will click on every single app on your phone every single day, right? But yeah, I think you need to know when to use what, and at least, of course, you will have your favorites that will be on your homepage or whatever, fast access, one touch, right? So same stuff with developers, right? So give them all that stuff, whatever, you know, just to try those things and see what works. And then, yeah, they will be the judge in terms of when to use what, and then, you know, they will have their own favorites, and then they can use as and when is required.
I think he has a question.
I came in a little late. I'm not sure if this has been addressed before. My name is Christy. I'm a technical architect at IBS. So, coming from Longfar, when I started learning languages, I don't even use IDEs. I started with plain Notepad so that it will imbibe in me the muscle memory. So kind of thing which we are kind of afraid is like with these Gen AI tools, are we going to lose the natural talent to code? How do you, even for me, if a new language comes, if I am depending more on Gen AI, I may not get the same level of that talent which I had in my first language. So how do you think look into it?
I'll pass it. By the way, just to add, I don't even use Notepad. I use VI. So, yeah, we're talking generations apart.
See, Gautam very smartly passed it on to me. See, it's a great question. To be honest, and I don't think there is a clear answer. Okay. Yes, I think the experience that you described, right? That will definitely be an era which we'll reminisce, right? About how we learned it the hard way, right? VI editors, text editors, Atom, right? I use visual, right? But I think if you see the other side, right, it helps more people to understand and onboard, whatever coding, testing, etc. If you think about it, right, because how many people really do what you described, versus what is a necessity? Like for example, I come from a GSI, right, global system integrators, and we deal with tens of thousands of developers. So when you're working at that scale, productivity, efficiency, cost optimization, this becomes very important. So this is where we see we see a role, right? But whether it's going to be, it's going to sort of discourage people who used to simply open Notepad and use tabs or spaces and align everything. Yes, I think that will be an inhibitor. I don't know whether I answered your question, but.
Feel pride in able to code. So if this is going to come, we are kind of becoming a kind of, what do you say? There is no pride, everyone can do it. So at the end of the day,
By the way, interestingly, we have in the industry is working on a model where we have something called App Studio, right? In App Studio, in fact, I delivered one of the prototypes for one of the large GSIs. So you go in and you put a prompt, right? I want a blood donation management application or volunteer management application. Actually, it will create a complete full stack application for you, including scaffolding, including all the routing, etc. Right? It not only creates it using agentic capabilities, it will add the project to your IDE. So as a developer, you don't even need to open and write hello world. It's all done. You just need to go and maybe customize it, tweak it. And App Studio is something that builds on top of it, where you can develop completely React Native applications using prompts, just prompts. So I think maybe in another couple of years, we're going to see a trend where why do we even need these intermediate languages in between? Just ask the LLM what you want, and you will get probably some binary package which you can execute it directly on your machine language, right? So that could also be possibility, but I don't think this will go off. I think they will coexist.
Any other questions?
Because I think that need will not go away. because you will still have use cases where these models will not be able to do a good job. For example, mainframe modernization. Even though there is a lot of momentum in mainframe modernization, still the large language models are not as good as, so I think there will be a tipping point. Correct, legacy modernization. So I don't think we are at a point where it's the scale is tipped, but maybe another 2-3 years it can happen, right? But then I think that's what I think she was also saying, right? It's about if you are continuously understanding the landscape and augmenting this knowledge, we will try to find higher forms of value adding tasks, and that's how the job market will evolve.
All right, everyone, thank you so much. Thank you for the panelists being here, and that's a wonderful session. And thanks for answering all my questions and all their questions. Thank you so much. Thank you, team. That's the end of our panel discussion.